Hi, once again, this is the New York State Court Assistant Exam Review, and this is the second module, which is clerical checking. This section of the exam is used to measure whether different sets of words, numbers, names, or codes are similar. You might see these on different types of exams, and the information is usually presented in 3 different columns, and you must be very careful to use the directions and select the correct answer choice. The more difficult questions will test comparisons of data presented on different lines. Many different types of documents are brought into the unified court system by court users, and many documents that are different are used by the internal employees of the unified court system. They may be created by the UCS internal software systems, by external law offices and agencies, and may also just be printouts from different databases on different people's computers. Court assistants must process important documents where the accuracy of the data is of utmost importance. These documents may include judgments and also warrants and commitments, things that can affect people's lives greatly, whether it's their freedom or their personal credit. One who works in the court system must have a tremendous attention to detail, because these documents that are created and that are released to outside agencies can have a tremendous impact on people's lives. So the importance of an attention to detail in examining and creating different information, sets of information, can't be stressed enough. Now, in this section, this is clerical checking, and it is a skill. This is something that really has to be developed by somebody reviewing and practicing, as opposed to a knowledge-based question. This is testing your ability to look at data, scan it, and accurately see what may be different from other data, which is supposed to be the same. There are many different types of civil service exams that use this type of question, especially the post office exam, and any of you who might be employed by the post office at this point would know that the accuracy rate is close to 100%, which is required by the post office for their sorting people. So it's very important that you pay attention to this section on the exam, and also to look at these questions and review these questions. If this is not a timed section of an exam and you have the ability to go back to this particular section, you should go back, because these are what they call the ground balls. You don't want to miss anyone's on this section. As I probably said before, this is a very highly competitive exam. So you really have to get everyone right that you can get right. That means that this section, which generally will be about 10 to 15 questions on the court assistant exam, you want to get every one of these right. So that means that you have to use your time. But accuracy is very important. It's most important compared to speed, so that you have to get this right as well as get through the entire exam. And you also need to have an answer for each one of these questions, as well as any question on the exam. And I say this of utmost importance because this is not like the old SAT exams where you were penalized for a certain percentage based on the percentage that you would get right from chance. You don't get penalized on these exams, and you have not in the past gotten penalized on state court exams, so that you want an answer for each question, but you want a correct answer. You don't want to get anyone wrong in this particular section. The important thing to note on this section is that font types and font size, whether they're bold or not, whether something is italicized or not, does not change the information on this type of question. So don't get thrown off by that. The basic spacing on this type of exam will change. So spacing doesn't affect the information either. For example, if you have a bold type or a different font on a different set of information that you're checking, you will note that there might be different spacing between the characters based on the font or the fact that it's bold or not. That does not affect the information. So look at the information. Now, the simple type of this question will have 3 sets of data, and will have it the same information on each line in the 3 sets. So you might have name, name, name in 3 columns on the same line, and then address, address, address. Those are the simpler types. And for those types of questions, if you get them, you should make sure, regardless, that you bring a straight edge to this part of the exam, because if it's the same information on the 3 sets of information collection that are on each the exam, you want to be able to use the straight edge so you can look straight across. It will help your eyes. Once again, it's a skill. This is not a knowledge-based question. The other thing I want to stress right now is that if you wear glasses, this can really affect how you see things. If you have presbyopia or you are farsighted, this part of the exam can be very difficult for you. And in the past, I have known somebody who forgot to bring his reading glasses, and he failed an exam by 2 questions because he really was squinting, and squinting doesn't really help to see close, unfortunately, the way it works with optics. But you want to make sure you bring your reading glasses, and you want to make sure that you bring a straight edge. And the straight edge will only help if the information on each line of the 3 sets is the same, such as name on the top line, address on the second line, phone number on the third line, Social Security. So bring a straight edge for that. Now, and once again, the bold, the type, the font, the type of font, the characters that they use, whether it's bold or italicized, the spacing in the fonts, they do not affect the information in the particular question. So I want to give you the example. I have 2 examples here that I'm going to review, and the first one is the following. This is on page 13 in your manual. The following questions contain 3 sets of information. And example 1. Compare the information in the 3 sets presented in each question. On your answer sheet, mark choice A if all 3 sets are exactly alike. Choice B if the first and third sets are alike. Choice C if only the first and second sets are exactly alike. And choice D if none of the sets are exactly alike. So those are the choices. Now remember this carefully. On the exam and on other exams that I've seen, the instructions can change. And so make sure every time you're going through a section on the exam where it transitions to another section or another written in bold type, you read those instructions, because exams in the past have changed the instructions for the same type of question so that these A, B, and C, D choices change. They get inverted, they get transposed, and the meaning of A, B, C, D is different in a different subsection of a section on clerical checking. So you cannot be rushing so fast that you do 1 through 5, 6 to 10, and 11 to 15, and you miss the fact that at the beginning of question 6 on the exam, and usually in bold type, there's an instruction that says, now follow these instructions, and there's a change in what A, B, C, and D mean. All right? So that's the first thing that I wanted to tell you. Now, sample question 1 has 3 sets of documents. Take a few minutes. You can pause the tape on your computer or your laptop, whatever you're working on. You can pause the tape, but do sample question 1 based on the choices that are given on page 13 in your manual. Okay, hopefully you've paused it, and now you can see that in sample question 1, all of the sets are different. The first set has the case type. You do not need to know the types of cases for this kind of exam as other tort. In the third set, the name of the JHO is listed as Spears, capital S, P-E-I-R-S. Therefore, none are alike, and the correct answer is choice D. Choice D says if none of the sets are exactly alike. So once again, in the first column, it's listed as an other tort. In columns 2 and 3, it's listed as a tort. In column 2, the officer, J.H.O. Spears, is spelled I-E-R-S. In the third column, the name of that judicial hearing officer is S-P-E-I-R-S. So those are three different sets of information, and in this particular question, all of the sets, all of the information types are on one line. So in this particular one, you could use a straight edge to assist you in this question, because you can check across and the same information is given on the same line in all three sets. Now, I want to go over just the second question. So the second question has the same direction as question 1 on page 13. So please pause this tape now and take a minute and go over the information and do sample question 2 using the instructions and directions on page 13. Okay, so the solution to this question, the information in all three sets are the same, even though the data is presented in different lines in each set. So in this particular question, using a straight edge will not help you. And generally speaking, they have used both on the exam, so just be prepared for the questions that have the same information on each line, but you might not be able to use it. But of course, as I said before, if you wear reading glasses, you need to wear reading glasses for this section. So make sure you do that. So they're all the same. This is presented on different lines. Now, here's some additional strategies that I'm going to give you for clerical checking questions. The first one is, do not spend any time looking for more than one difference between any two sets of data. Once you find any difference on any line between any two sets of data, move on. You might make a little light mark on the exam booklet, which you can erase later, but you should be noting this somewhere and move on to the next set. Don't look and waste time for additional differences between any two sets of data. Once you've found one difference, make a note and move on to check the other set. Now, the other thing is, many find it will be helpful to create an answer key for yourself so that you don't have to read through the instructions to see what choice A is and what choice B is and C and D. And the key is in your book on the page, and I also have it on the board here, and you can see that what I would do and what many people do and what most of the other companies that are doing review classes will teach you is to create your own key so that each time you do one of these questions, you don't have to read through the meaning of each of the answer choices A through D. So in this particular case, I will show that you have a choice. If A says all are different, for any reason, if you do get that choice, you can use a code next to the letter A, and you write this lightly on the booklet, lightly. You would write a 0 with a line through it, or an X, or an equal sign with a line through it. And this is, once again, this is all up to you. It's subjective. You figure out what in your mind would be the quickest thing for you to recognize that choice A means they're all different. None of the sets are alike. A lot of people use an X. A lot of people align with an equal with a line through it. Some people don't like using the equal sign with a line through it because then they might get mixed up between an equal sign, which you'll see is the next choice key that we're going to use for the key. So if B is are the same, all three choices, you would just use an equal sign. And that's pretty uniform and it's pretty standard. And from what I've seen, most people are comfortable that if they're saying all are the same, you write an equal sign. So really, it's choice A, and this can change on the exam, and it will. You put down whatever symbol you want to use to let you know quickly that that means nothing, none of the three sets are exactly alike. And choose anything that you would have that you would recognize as quickly as possible, so that you don't have to read through the meanings of each of the answer choices in the instructions. And the third choice in C is if only the first and the third sets are alike, then you would write 1 equals 3. All right? So you would write 1 equals 3, and you would write it in the instructions right next to the letter C. And as I said, these are interchangeable. So whatever you get on the exam, you will write 1 equal 3 by whatever letter corresponds to the answer choice that says the first and the third are the same. And the last option is D, which is on the same kind of thinking, which is if only the first and the second sets are alike, you're going to write next to D, or whatever the corresponding letter is on the actual exam, you're going to write 1 equal 2. This will enable you to not have to read. This is a 4-hour exam. By the time you get to the end of the exam, you're going to be very, very tired. You're going to have been reading and thinking for 4 hours, basically straight, unless you use a restroom break. So that you want to make it as easy as possible, and to make it easy, if you use these symbols next to the answer choices on each set of instructions in the clerical checking section, it will enable you to quickly look at the answer choices A, B, C, and D, and then go right back to your choice on the particular exam, the choice number, and answer it correctly and quickly. And that's basically it for this. Now, the symbol, you can use any symbols or letters, once again, that you want. And continue to practice the exercises in the book, which begin, clerical checking exercises begin on page 15. So go through the clerical checking exercises. If you find that this is a problem for you, you don't have to mark the manual here, or you can make additional prints of the manual so that you can review this section at different times without having a clue as to what the correct answer is. So I said, if this is a problem for you in terms of speed or accuracy, then you should be reviewing this a lot, and you can make photocopies of these pages and keep going over the same information. This is, once again, it is a skill. It is not a knowledge-based section, and you have to use your vision, your perception, and basically your scanning of information to get these right. You don't want to miss any of these particular questions. These are the ground balls on the exam. You want to go over them. At the end of the exam, you want to go over these to make sure you didn't miss any. Remember, you could always find another difference later on. And you should be using this section probably if you have a problem with these sections. Unless you get questions that say all are different, you should still review it, but you probably would be spending more time on those answers that you chose that say 1 equal 3 or 2 equal 3, or they're all alike, to see if you can find an actual difference only after you completed the exam. And as I said before, if this is a timed section and you don't get to the end of it, make sure you fill in each of the answers on your Scantron sheet to ensure that you have the chance to get credit for each one of these. These are the ground balls. You don't want to miss any. You should be practicing these often until you get really proficient at it. This is a skill. Keep practicing. Good luck. And that is the end of this section on clerical checking. Thank you. Hello, I'm Mark Spiritus, and this is an additional section on the review for the Court Assistant exam. This is going to be a review of grammar, usage, and punctuation to prepare you for the sections on the exam that have to do with preparing written material. Generally speaking, they have used two types of questions on the exam. The first type begins on page 37 in your manuals, and that is the type of question which gives you a choice of 4 questions, and you have to select the one which is most in accordance with standard English grammar. So you have to find basically errors in 3 sentences and then pick the one that is the best. The second type of question will be begins on page 40, and in that question, they will give you a paragraph with certain words removed, and you're going to have to select the selection, which includes 5 words or 4 words that are a choice that is the most in accordance with correct grammar usage, punctuation, spelling, etc. But you have many different examples or exercises in the book to review. So we're going to start this review with subject and verb agreement. This is not exciting stuff, but try to remember that you're going to be trying to do the best you can on this exam. As a highly competitive examination, you have to score very highly on this to be selected, even if you do pass. So you want to get as much information as you can. For most of you, you haven't reviewed this, and you probably think you're stars that you haven't had to review it since you've been in high school. So please put attention to this, pay attention to what I'm going to say, and review this, because these can be questions that will help you do better than other people taking the exam. So we're going to start with subject and verb agreement, and I'm just going to review a lot of things in this particular segment of the review videos. And this is subject and verb agreement again, and the subject of a sentence is a clause, usually a noun or pronoun, which does the action. And even if the action is passive, like forms of the word exist or to be, like I am or you are. If the subject of a sentence is singular, the singular form of the verb must be used. If the subject is plural, then the plural form of the verb has to be used. You can see in example 1, this is all on page 26, we're beginning. The litigants usually prepare or prepares their briefs in comfortable office facilities. So which is it? Is it prepare or prepares? Notice the sentence, the subject of the sentence, litigants, refers to more than one, and it's a plural subject. Because of this, the correct form of the verb is prepare. Note that in English, the singular form of verbs usually end in an S or an ES at the end, such as eats, studies, chases, relaxes. That's the singular form. Example 2, the Mustang is one of the American muscle cars that has or have given pleasure to thousands of our generation. In this example, the subject is singular. It is the Mustang. Even this is a singular subject, so the verb has to be singular, and it would be has as opposed to have. Beware that sometimes between the subject and the verb are phrases such as prepositional phrases, such as the one that's used here, of the American cars, which then it's not the subject of the sentence, but because it's so closely located to the verb that many people might wish to select the plural form of the verb, because we're talking American muscle cars as part of that phrase, which is really called the antecedent, very close to the verb, but it is not the subject of the sentence. Now, in terms of, this does get trickier, in terms of collective nouns, some subject called collective nouns basically name a group of things, and some examples are family, collection, committee, jury, a crowd. And generally, most of these will take a singular form because they're collective. The American Olympic team really wants to win, so that's a singular. And the jury is composed of 6 or 7 members. Singular. Jury is singular, it's collective. And the couple provides us with an ideal or in successful matrimony. Once again, the couple is an individual acting as an individual, and that is a singular verb that it takes. Now, some examples of where it takes plural verbs are the team put on their uniforms for the big game. Now notice the team doesn't put on one uniform. They put on separate uniforms. So they act basically individually. So really, you're substituting in your mind, instead of the team members put on their uniforms for the big game. So generally, if you can substitute that word, the words like the team members, as everyone acting individually, then you will see that in that particular case, it will take a plural, because it's many people acting individually. So it will take a plural verb to agree with the subject. A couple of court officers were assigned to protect the witness. Once they're acting plural, they're acting different as plural. So you're going to use were. A couple were. Now, the following words have irregular plural forms. Many of these are taken from Latin. Just be aware of these, that the singular form curriculum takes the plural form curricula. The singular form memorandum, the plural form is memoranda. The singular form of the word stimulus takes the form in the plural as the word stimuli, and criterion is singular, and plural is criteria. So they're shorter words in the plural. Note that data and media, these are tricky, and English has really the most exceptions, the most words of any language, and also the most exceptions. So you should really have to, a lot of times, spend time learning the exceptions to rules. But data and media, they're considered plural, and they use plural forms of verbs. So the data is or are available. It's are available because it takes the plural form. And also, the media cause many issues to be discussed openly. It's not causes, it's cause, because the media acts as a plural and takes a plural verb. Now, in addition to those types of subjects, there are also there's also a topic called compound subjects. When two or more objects in a sentence or a clause, it's considered compound. So when two or more subjects are compounded with the word and, the plural form of the verb is used. Simple example, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron are both members of the Hall of Fame. This will sound correct to your ear, and they're generally easy to decipher, exceptionally on the exam. The exception is, of this rule, when the items that are combined, that use the word and, are actually have come to become one, or considered one thing, then it will take the singular form of the verb. And there are not that many in English, but note that in the book on page 27 there are two examples. Research and development is one of the most important components of an industrial company's budget. So research and development are two separate things, but over time they actually have become one. And the same thing with this sample 2. Ham and eggs is my favorite breakfast. Though ham and eggs are two separate things, ham and eggs has become a singular subject, so that you are going to use the verb is. You're going to use a singular verb for ham and eggs and any other compound subjects that have come to be have become one particular item in people's usage. Now, there's also something called correlative conjunctions, and those conjunctions are connecting words. Remember, if you remember conjunction junction from Sesame Street, words that connect together. So there are either or, neither nor, and both and. Those are the correlative conjunctions. When using these combination, if both of the nouns, pronouns that they're connecting